My brother got a girlfriend. The first time we met, she asked, "In your family, do daughters get to inherit property too?" The second time we met, she criticized the gift I gave her. "Oh, you're actually giving this as a gift?" I was so angry I wanted to tear her apart on the spot, but unexpectedly, my brother acted even faster. He immediately posted on his social media, "Girlfriends can be replaced, but I only have one sister." Since we were little, I knew my brother was a sucker for a pretty face. When we were kids, the neighborhood boys were obsessed with model car racing, all of them debating which model was the fastest. The only exception was my brother. He didn't care about speed at all, and decisively chose the most beautiful car. At that time, I thought, this man is definitely going to be deceived by women in the future. As it turns out, I wasn't wrong. In the summer of his junior year of college, my brother brought his girlfriend home to meet us. The girl was so beautiful, it was stunning. Long black hair, a pure white dress, fair skin, and eyes that sparkled like water. My brother couldn't take his eyes off her. But my intuition told me this girl was not as simple as she appeared. Sure enough, the moment she saw me, her eyes immediately locked onto the Chanel bag I was carrying. She pursed her lips and said gently to my brother, "Oh, Henry, I never knew that while you're usually so frugal, your sister is so fashionable." My brother replied nonchalantly, "Can't be helped. My parents spoil her. Our family had become wealthy overnight. My father always held the belief that sons should be raised with hardship, and daughters with luxury, so my allowance was always 100 times greater than my brother's." Perhaps Jessica Lee had also realized this, so she pouted and feigned surprise. "Is that so?" In my hometown, once a daughter is grown, she can't ask her parents for money anymore. After she starts working, she even has to support her older and younger brothers. Hearing that, I was immediately annoyed. What was that supposed to mean? I'm my parents' biological daughter, so I don't have the right to spend their money? Before I could even retort, I saw my brother speak up first. "Why?" he asked seriously. "Are their brothers and younger brothers missing their arms and legs? Why do they need someone else to support them?" The smile on Jessica's face immediately froze. "Theft!" I couldn't help but burst out laughing. That dinner was not a very happy one. The moment Jessica left, I immediately asked my brother, "Where did you find this one?" The idea of favoring sons over daughters is ingrained in her very bones. My brother sighed. "Don't blame Jessica. If you think about it, isn't she also a victim of that very ideology? She's been brainwashed by her family since she was a child. It's quite pitiful." My brother told me that Jessica had a younger brother, and since they were little, she was never valued by her family. She was used to sacrificing for others and never thought of herself. The first time my brother met her was when he saw her working a part-time job to the point of collapsing from low blood pressure. Yet she still wouldn't dare to buy herself a proper lunch. He sighed softly. At that moment, I just felt so sorry for her. I mercilessly shot him down. "Oh, give me a break. You just fell for her looks." My brother's face stiffened slightly, but he still tried to argue. "In any case, she's very pitiful." Thinking back, it was true. After all, she was just a victim. So I didn't bother to argue with her. The next day was her birthday, and I even brought a gift to her party. "Sister-in-law," I beamed, wishing her a happy birthday. "I got you a bag." I chose a new release from LV, because I remembered my brother saying she was about to start working. This bag was very suitable for a professional setting. "Thank you." Jessica happily accepted the gift. But when she opened the box and saw the bag inside, the smile on her face suddenly froze. "What's wrong?" I noticed her expression change. "You don't like it?" "No, it's not that." Jessica pouted. "It's just, I thought a rich young lady like you would give a Hermes, or at least a Chanel. I didn't expect it to be just an LV. Me. What? Since when did LV become something so cheap and low class? This bag cost several $1,000s, you know?" I was still in shock when Jessica turned to smile at me, her eyes full of magnanimity. "It's okay, Arya, I know you didn't do it on purpose. Maybe it's because you don't like me as a sister-in-law yet that you gave such a simple gift. But it's okay. I believe that one day you will accept me." With that, she even put on a strong, optimistic smile. just like a female lead in a K-drama. I was so angry I almost vomited blood. What do you mean? It's okay. I'm the one with the problem here. I was furious with Jessica, but unfortunately it was her birthday party and I couldn't conveniently make a scene. In the middle of the party, I went to the restroom. Unexpectedly, just as I sat down, I heard Jessica's voice and her best friend's voices right outside. Hey, that pretty girl just now is really Henry's sister? I used to hear that Henry was a rich young master and I didn't believe it. But seeing his sister today, oh my god, she's covered in designer brands from head to toe. I totally believe it now. But their family is really strange. They spoil the daughter so much but are so stingy with the son. In the future, will they even be biased with the inheritance? Very quickly, Jessica's smug voice rang out. Don't worry. I will absolutely not let that happen. Every day, I use my and my brother's situation to drill it into Henry's head, telling him he has to fight for the inheritance, and absolutely cannot let that girl get a single cent. I was so angry I nearly jumped off the toilet. Well. So much for being a victim of a sexist ideology. It turns out she only says what's beneficial to her. I was so furious I couldn't hold it in any longer and immediately kicked the stall door open. The moment she saw me, Jessica's face went pale. Arya, why are you here? I didn't hold back at all and scolded her directly. Why can't I be here? If I hadn't been here today, I probably wouldn't have known what you were plotting. I was about to unleash my fury, to act the part of a hot-tempered but righteous sister. But unexpectedly, before I could say another word, Jessica's eyes rolled back and she fainted. Fainted? For real? I stood there, my mind completely blank. Before I could even react, Jessica's friends quickly started screaming. Arya! You scared Jessica so much she fainted. The shrill screams of her friends quickly attracted everyone's attention, including my brother's. A crowd gathered around. Before I could even open my mouth to explain, Jessica's friends started their clamor. Henry! Jessica is your girlfriend. You must get justice for her. That's right. Your sister is too domineering. She was screaming that the Addams family's assets were all hers. Jessica just said one word to defend you, and she pushed her down and made her faint. Exactly. With such a vicious sister, you have to be careful, or you might be the one she harms next. I stood there, my jaw agape in astonishment. I had just witnessed a perfect performance of fabricating a story out of thin air. Just then, Jessica suddenly woke up. She sat up dazedly, tears streaming down her face, and gently grabbed her best friend's arm, weakly defending me. Everyone, please don't blame Arya. If you have to blame someone, just blame me for not being worthy of her family. With that, she looked up at my brother, her tears finally rolling down. But Henry, I truly like you. I really, really like you. In that moment, her beauty and fragility combined perfectly. She was both pitiful and deeply in love. As a woman, even I almost softened. I thought to myself, with a beauty like this, my brother, a sucker for appearances, would surely be completely captivated. Sure enough, I saw him slowly sit down and take Jessica's hand. I guessed he was about to say a few words to defend his girlfriend, which made me so angry I was about to explode. But unexpectedly, I heard him say in a sincere voice, Jessica Lee, you're right. I also feel that you're not worthy of me. The gentle, pitiful smile on Jessica's face immediately froze. She stared at my brother as if she had misheard. Henry, what did you just say? But my brother didn't leave her a single shred of hope. I said, a person who lies all the time like you is indeed not worthy of me. Jessica finally snapped out of it completely. She bit her lip, tears streaming down her cheeks again. Henry, don't you believe me? We've been together for almost a year. You don't believe me, and you're going to believe your sister instead? That tone, as if my brother had just committed a heinous crime. But my brother just looked at her as if she were an idiot. You said it yourself. I've only known you for a year while I've been with my sister for over 20 years. According to your logic, isn't it obvious that I would believe my sister and not you? The resentful expression on Jessica's face immediately stiffened. She opened her mouth, about to retort, But perhaps she also realized that my brother's words were too logical. So for a moment, she didn't know how to rebut. My brother had no more energy to argue with her. He immediately pulled me away. I was still a bit dazed from the surprise. It wasn't until he had pulled me to the door that I snapped out of it and quickly said, wait a minute. I quickly ran into the VIP room next door, retrieved the LV bag I had gifted her, and returned. I smirked at Jessica Lee. Weren't you complaining about the LV bag I gave you? That's great. I'm taking it back. Are you kidding me? My family has money, but that doesn't mean I'm stupid. You want me to give a bag to someone like her? Not a chance. Ignoring Jessica's pale face, I sauntered off with the bag in one hand and my brother in the other, without a single glance back. It wasn't until we were in my brother's car that I completely calmed down. I glanced at him and asked curiously, I'm surprised, Henry. A pretty face connoisseur like you actually used your brain today. In my mind, my brother was the type to be led by his eyes and forget his head. The moment he saw a pretty girl, his ability to reason would vanish, easily manipulated by any green tea master. I never expected him to be so sharp today, to see through Jessica's true face. My brother lazily rolled his eyes. I just like pretty girls. I'm not an idiot. I've known her long enough to know she lies a lot. It's just, he frowned slightly, seeming to think about how to phrase it. Finally, he shrugged. I'm just generous. For some harmless little lies, I can turn a blind eye. I immediately called him out without mercy. You're such a liar. To put it bluntly, it's because she's beautiful that you turned a blind eye, right? Well, my brother acted as if he hadn't heard me and continued nonchalantly. But this time was different. She made up stories about you. That, I cannot overlook. I looked at my brother, a warmth blooming in my chest. I'm surprised. This guy had bullied me since we were kids, but at a critical moment, he still knew to stand on his sister's side. But that warm feeling didn't last long because I then heard him add, besides, Jessica lies without even using her brain. You, capable enough to fight me for the family inheritance? With your IQ, could you even handle calculations that complex? The warmth that had just filled me was instantly and mercilessly crushed. I was so angry I could have exploded. I immediately took the bag in my hand and threw it straight at his face. Henry Adams, you're such a jerk. And just like that, my brother and Jessica Lee broke up. At least that was the unilateral declaration from my brother. He decisively deleted her from his messaging apps and even boldly posted on his social media, officially declaring, I'm a single dog again. But on the other side, Jessica was clearly not willing to give up so easily. It had to be admitted, among the rich young masters, my brother was a rare find. Good-looking and without many disgusting bad habits. Jessica probably knew very well that if she let my brother go, she might not find anyone better. So, one way or another, she would try to get back with him. Sure enough, I wasn't wrong. A few days later, a trendy new hot pot place opened downtown. My brother and I, two foodies, immediately rushed over to try it. We ate until our stomachs were round and were about to leave the restaurant when we suddenly heard a familiar sobbing voice. Brother, I've really given you all my money. Even if you beat me to death here today, I don't have another cent. I looked up and happened to see Jessica and a young man in a standoff right in front of the restaurant. The man bore some resemblance to her. He must have been the mooching older brother she had mentioned before. The guy was gripping Jessica's wrist, yelling angrily, Stop pretending with me. Aren't you dating some rich young master? Go call your little rich boyfriend to give you money. Let me tell you, I'm your older brother, so you have a responsibility to pay off my debts, buy me a house, and cover all my living expenses. Got it! With that, he raised his hand as if to hit her. But the action was a bit strange. It looked like he was using a lot of force, but in reality, he didn't even touch her. And Jessica on the other side was even more miraculous. From the outside, she looked like she was being miserably manhandled by her brother. But if you looked closely, you would see that her misery was just a little too perfect. Her pure white dress had been pulled at all day, yet there wasn't a single wrinkle. Her hair was a bit messy, but it looked like it had been professionally styled to be artistically messy, both pitiful and beautiful. And the makeup on her face was still intact, pale but not overly so. She looked exactly like a bullied little fawn, making people feel an urge to protect her. I clicked my tongue. I turned to look at my brother, unable to hold back my amazement. Bro, does Jessica really think you're an idiot? I was truly speechless. Anyone with eyes could see that this was a ridiculous play put on by Jessica and her brother. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Jessica's brother needed money, but he didn't go to her house or her company. He just happened to show up right in front of the hot pot restaurant. And what was even better, this was the exact restaurant my brother and I had just posted about online. To dare to use such a clumsy performance, it proved that Jessica really did think my brother was a fool. My brother was also at a loss for words. Before he could even open his mouth, Jessica accidentally saw us. She immediately ran over, clutched my brother's arm, and pleaded in a choked voice. Henry, I'm begging you. Please just say a word to my brother. Tell him that we've already broken up. I really don't have any more money. I can't even pay my rent this month. I don't even have money for food. Her voice trembled, her eyes were red, and she looked so pitiful that anyone who saw her would feel their heart ache. A few guys in the surrounding crowd watching the show even looked like they were about to pull out their wallets to help the beautiful damsel in distress. But I showed no mercy and replied coolly, Really? If you're so poor you can't afford to eat, then where did you get the money to buy that new perfume? As I spoke, I took a light sniff. I'm even more certain now. That's the new scent from Guerlain, isn't it? It just came out last week. I looked down at her shoes and smirked. Oh, and these shoes too! I remember they just hit the stores a few days ago, and they cost at least a few $100s. If you're so poor, then it seems you're still much richer than your brother. Actually, my brother and I had discussed this before. The Lee family probably wasn't as sexist as she claimed, and she probably wasn't as pitiful as she made herself out to be. For example, she spent money very freely. Although my brother was indulgent with his girlfriends, he wasn't the type to provide for them unconditionally, so a lot of her money must have come from her family. Not to mention, she had been pampered since she was a child. Her hands were even softer and smoother than mine. She didn't look like someone who had ever experienced a hard life. The so-called sexism was just an excuse for her to create a pitiful persona, and at the same time, brainwash my brother into fighting me for the inheritance. The moment I exposed her lies, a look of panic appeared on Jessica's face. Not just her, but her brother also looked a little flustered. But it was clear that her brother's reaction was faster. He immediately composed himself, raised his hand and shouted, You slut! You dare to waste money instead of giving it to me? Let me beat you to death. With that, he swung his hand and actually slapped Jessica across the face. This was clearly a self-pity ploy, but he also didn't dare to hit her too hard. The slap sounded dramatic, but in reality, it only made Jessica's face a little red, which made her look even more pitiful. Jessica immediately cooperated, let out a scream, and then fell weakly to the ground. By now, the front of the restaurant was already crowded. Their argument had drawn even more people. The slap had made the crowd even more agitated. Some people even started to criticize my brother and me for being heartless, for seeing a girl being oppressed by her family and not helping. Someone even took out their phone to record a video, probably intending to post it online. I started to get a headache. I turned to my brother and said in a low voice, Bro, how about we give them a taste of their own medicine? My brother looked at me and nodded firmly. I was thinking the same thing. We understood each other so well. Just one sentence was enough to know what the other was planning. At that moment, Jessica's brother seemed to want to make his act even more perfect. He raised his hand again, intending to deliver another blow. Just as his hand was about to swing down, Stop! My brother suddenly shouted and rushed forward. Seeing my brother finally appear to save the damsel, Jessica's eyes lit up with hope. But before she could even be happy, the situation suddenly turned upside down. My brother rushed forward and accidentally ran into her brother's hand. From the crowd's perspective, it looked as if Jessica's brother had just thrown a massive punch at my brother's face. Immediately after, my brother let out a tragic cry and then collapsed to the ground. His eyes rolled back, unconscious. Utterly, completely unconscious. This scene left Jessica and her brother completely stunned. Before they could even react, I let out a blood-curdling scream. "Henry!" I immediately rushed over, pretending to check if my brother was okay, and then burst into sobs, wailing to the surrounding crowd. "It's over! My brother has a heart condition. He's having a heart attack now. You two will be held responsible." The moment I finished, Jessica Lee and her brother snapped out of their daze. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Jessica quickly spoke up. "Your brother doesn't have a heart condition." I immediately glared, continuing to sob dramatically. "He's my brother. You think I don't know his health condition better than you do? He has a congenital heart defect. If he gets scared or hit, it'll act up immediately." I lied without blinking. Although the content was utterly absurd, my acting was top-notch. My trembling voice, my pale face filled with worry, an expression that looked like the sky was falling. It was enough to make even Jessica's brother start to panic. I didn't hit him," he quickly denied, stammering. "He ran into me himself. I didn't hit him." I helped my unconscious brother up, wiped my tears, and said in a choked voice, "You are just hitting your sister so hard. It's understandable that you might have accidentally hit my brother. You have to compensate us. My brother is very precious. The hospital fees alone will be at least tens of thousands of dollars. Oh, and the damages! My brother has an extremely important business bid tomorrow. Now he can't go anymore. Our company will definitely lose millions of dollars. Now tell me, how much are you going to compensate us?" I just kept spouting a series of astronomical numbers. Jessica immediately realized something was wrong and tried to signal her brother. But the problem was, her brother wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He was completely bewildered by the word compensation and the huge numbers I was throwing out. He immediately panicked and, without thinking, blurted out, "I didn't hit this girl, I was just pretending," he shouted, determined to push all the blame away. "It was her! It was my sister who told me to act out this scene, to pretend I was bullying her so her rich boyfriend would feel sorry for her. It was all her idea. I don't know anything." Jessica froze on the spot. Her brother was truly the ultimate pig teammate. In just 3 sentences, he had exposed the entire plan. Jessica's face turned ashen. The surrounding crowd immediately understood everything. The people who had just been defending her were now whispering and mocking. I thought she was a pitiful beauty, but it turns out she's just a gold digger who plays the victim. No wonder those rich young masters aren't stupid. They probably saw through her long ago. The sound of mocking laughter was endless. Finally, Jessica couldn't take it anymore, covered her face and ran off crying. Her brother, after throwing out a final, "Don't you come looking for me for compensation?" also quickly scurried away. I looked down at my brother, who was still pretending to be unconscious, and saw that he had secretly opened his eyes to peek. Our eyes met, and then we both smirked. Show's over. I had originally thought that after the fiasco at the hot pot restaurant, Jessica would finally give up on my brother. But it was clear I had underestimated her persistence. A month later, I had just returned from a trip with my friends. Before I could even put my luggage down, my brother burst in, his face contorted, and grabbed me. "It's over! It's over! Jessica got me good this time." I had to listen for a while before I understood what had happened. The night before, a friend of my brother's in the wealthy circle had a grand opening for a new club. My brother went to the party to celebrate and unexpectedly ran into Jessica. She said she had let everything go and just wanted to have one last drink with him, then poured him a glass of wine. But unexpectedly, there was something wrong with the wine. "You think she could fool me?" My brother was very smug as he recounted this part. Our family is in the wine business. I know more about wine than anyone. I could tell something was off just by smelling it, so I pretended to drink it, but actually poured it all out. I asked, puzzled, "Then how exactly did she get you good?" My brother's face immediately stiffened. "Well, I got drunk," I suddenly realized. I forgot to mention, my brother's alcohol tolerance is even worse than his taste in women. 1 glass and he's stumbling, 2 glasses and he's out. It was precisely because of this terrible tolerance that my brother couldn't become a playboy and had to obediently study and work properly. According to his account, he was drunk last night but was still vaguely conscious. He had booked a room for himself in a nearby hotel. Unexpectedly, Jessica managed to find her way there. My brother was so drunk his mind was foggy. He opened the door, and she charged into the room and refused to leave. Hearing this, I frowned. "So, did you two do anything?" My brother shook his head like a drum. "Of course not. Don't you know me? When I'm drunk, I'm as limp as mud. I don't have the energy to do anything like that." I thought about it and felt it was true. Although my brother was a terrible drinker, he never got to the point of losing all consciousness. If he said nothing happened, then nothing happened. But the thing that's giving me a headache is... My brother blinked at me helplessly. The next morning, Jessica insisted that something had happened between us. At this point, my brother put on a bewildered face and asked me for help. "Arya, tell me, nothing clearly happened, so why does Jessica keep insisting that it did? Does she want money?" "But she didn't ask for any." "Does she want me to take responsibility?" "But she never mentioned it. It's so strange." If the two of them hadn't been exes, but just had a normal relationship, then her wanting my brother to take responsibility would be understandable. Or if she simply wanted to extort money, that would also be logical. But the problem was, she didn't ask for money, nor did she force my brother to take responsibility, only firmly insisted that something had happened between them. This was indeed very strange. I thought for a moment, and relying on my experience from watching countless melodramas, I finally began to understand the situation. I calculated the time and said, "Just wait. She probably come to find you in about a month." Sure enough, I wasn't wrong. A month later, as predicted, Jessica appeared in front of my brother's company building. She was holding a file folder, which she held out in front of my brother, her eyes red, her voice weak, but full of tragic sorrow. "Henry, I'm pregnant." If I hadn't prepared my brother beforehand, he probably would have fainted from shock on the spot. But thanks to the mental rehearsal I had prepared for him, his mood was now very calm. However, to coordinate with the act, my brother still managed to put on a slightly shocked expression. "Is it from that night?" Jessica lowered her head, her cheeks flushing, and gently nodded. But just as she wasn't looking, I clearly saw my brother roll his eyes in disgust. I could almost hear his inner thoughts. "That night, I didn't even touch you. Are you trying to get pregnant with air?" But my brother held back and didn't say anything. Just asked in a low voice, "So, what do you want to do?" Jessica's eyes immediately reddened further, tears welling up. She looked at my brother hopefully, her voice careful but full of sincerity. "I want to keep this child. Henry, can you give our child a proper name?" If I hadn't exposed her true face before, I might have been moved by this performance myself. But because I already knew her true nature, at this moment, I just wanted to award her an Oscar for Best Actress. Seeing my brother not answer immediately, Jessica's eyes grew even redder, tears falling like rain. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come to bother you. I will give birth to this child on my own and take good care of it." With that, she turned as if to leave, a very sophisticated retreat to advance move. But before she could take a step, my brother grabbed her. "Don't worry." My brother looked at her with an affectionate gaze, his voice gentle but firm. "Jessica, I will definitely give this child a proper status." Jessica was stunned for a second, then quickly burst with joy. This time her tears were surely real. She threw herself into my brother's arms and sobbed, "Henry, I knew it! I knew you still loved me." I stood on the side watching the show and almost laughed out loud. "Love you? Wait until you find out what kind of status we have in mind for you. Then let's see if you still think my brother loves you." My brother told Jessica that he had consulted an astrologer, and there was a perfect, auspicious day for marriage in a month. Hearing this, Jessica was ecstatic and immediately started preparing for the wedding. She excitedly asked my brother what kind of wedding he wanted. But my brother, pretending to be deeply in love, said gently, "This is your wedding. You can choose whatever you like. You don't need to ask me." My brother only made 2 requests. My parents were currently busy with important matters abroad and would only be back on the wedding day. so they couldn't meet her before then. And this wedding was a bit rushed, so they only needed to invite the immediate family. Later, when they had time, they would have a grand wedding on an island and invite all their relatives and friends. Jessica not only agreed immediately but was so overjoyed that she called me out for coffee to show off. Holding her teacup, she sighed dramatically. "Arya, your brother is truly my soulmate. We almost missed each other. But luckily, thanks to the baby in my belly, we can be together and finally have a happy ending. This is truly the most precious gift God has given me." As she spoke, she sniffled and sobbed, as if overcome with emotion. Then she took out a tissue to wipe her tears, conveniently showing off the massive diamond ring on her finger. I had to try very hard not to laugh, but Jessica Lee was too engrossed in her own smugness to notice that my expression was a little off. She put on a gentle act again, looking at me with a magnanimous expression. "Arya, I know you don't like me, but I'll be your sister-in-law in the future. We should try to get along, right?" I immediately picked up my coffee cup and took a sip, trying not to burst out laughing on the spot. "You want to be my sister-in-law? In your next life, maybe." I could see that, in the beginning, Jessica was still a little nervous. After all, she knew better than anyone that the baby in her belly was not my brother's. Moreover, with today's medical technology, a paternity test can be done from the 12th week, so of course she was worried. But it was probably because my brother treated her so well, never showing any suspicion from beginning to end. So gradually, she let her guard down and even insisted that my brother go with her for prenatal checkups. By the time they completed the 11th week checkup, it was already time for the wedding. On the wedding day, Jessica wore the exquisite wedding dress she had carefully chosen, excitedly waiting for the groom to come and pick her up. But unexpectedly, she received a shocking piece of news. "There's been a problem," the person who delivered the message said with a half smile, shrugging. "The groom can't come to pick up the bride. The bride will have to go by herself. The groom is already waiting at the hotel." "What?" Jessica was so shocked she froze. She kept asking me what had happened, but I just smiled mysteriously and vaguely replied, "The groom has some urgent work-related matter." This explanation obviously couldn't convince anyone. After all, what kind of work could be so important that one couldn't pick up their own bride on their wedding day? The faces of Jessica's parents also gradually darkened. But the wedding had already come to this point. Canceling was impossible. Not to mention, this was the marriage that Jessica had schemed and calculated with all her might to obtain. How could she give it up? Thinking of this, she gritted her teeth, swallowed her pride, and got into the wedding car alone. As she sat in the car, she glared angrily at the film crew. "What are you still filming for?" Then she turned to me, her voice full of resentment. "Arya, did you pull some trick? Let me tell you, just wait until I marry into your family and give birth to a son. Then we'll see how I deal with you." I just found it amusing. I never expected that even at this point, she still thought I was her enemy. But in reality, her greatest enemy, from beginning to end, was only her own greed. The wedding. Although the beginning was not very smooth, when she stepped into the ceremony hall, Jessica quickly put on a shy and happy smile. I knew she was trying to make everyone believe that she was truly having a blissful marriage. Her father took her hand and led her down the magnificent floral aisle, step by step towards the groom. She gently lifted her head, preparing to give a well-practiced demure smile. But the very next second, when she saw the groom's face, she froze on the spot. Then she let out a blood-curdling scream. "Evan King, why is it you?" In front of her was not my brother but Evan King, the lovesick fool who had been pursuing Jessica for all these years. Jessica's face immediately turned deathly pale. She frantically looked around and yelled, "There's been a mistake! I'm not the bride for this wedding. My groom is Henry Adams. Did you bring me to the wrong place?" Even at this point, she still thought she had been brought to the wrong venue. It wasn't until I stood beside her, laughed coldly, and slowly reminded her, "What do you mean, wrong place? Today, this wedding is to give the child in your belly a name. Evan King is the child's biological father. Is there a problem with him being the groom?" Jessica's face turned ashen in an instant. How did you know?" She almost blurted it out, but caught herself in time and immediately denied it. What nonsense are you talking about? The baby in my belly is Henry's. It has nothing to do with Evan King. I chuckled softly and held up the paper in my hand. Is that so? But the results of the paternity test from your prenatal checkup a few days ago state very clearly that Evan King is the biological father of the child. When my brother told me about Jessica's calculations, I immediately felt something was off. If it was really my brother's child, she could have secretly done a test and then come to him. But she had rushed to demand marriage the moment she found out she was pregnant. The more I thought about it, the more problematic it seemed. I hired a private investigator to look into it. The results showed that just a few days before she planned to trap my brother, she had spent the night with Evan King. Evan was also from a wealthy family, but both his family's status and his looks were inferior to my brother's. So for many years, Jessica had only treated him as a backup. After being dumped by my brother, she was upset and got drunk. And then things happened with Evan. After that, she calculated the timing and realized the situation was quite risky. Initially, she planned to buy the morning after pill, but then she changed her mind. She thought, why not take this opportunity to frame my brother? A month later, she was pregnant. She knew very well it was Evan's child, but she still shamelessly went to my brother to demand he take responsibility. After investigating everything, I personally went to find Evan King and told him the whole truth. Evan was ecstatic when he found out Jessica was pregnant with his child. But when he heard that she wanted to pin the child on my brother, he fell into despair. I made a proposal. If you really love her, then you should be her groom. After all, you are the child's biological father. Jessica has always said she wants to give the child a proper name. Then we will help her fulfill her wish. I have to say, Evan was a typical lovesick fool. He knew very well who Jessica wanted to marry, but he still agreed to this plan. And so, today's drama was born. Realizing she had been set up, Jessica went berserk. She angrily threw the bouquet in her hand to the ground and screamed through gritted teeth. Henry Adams! Aria Adams, you two dare to play me! Just you wait and see! But it was clear that Jessica no longer had a chance to wait and see anything, because her life had completely fallen into chaos. After finding out her plan had failed, she immediately aborted Evan King's child. This was definitely the most foolish decision of her life. Actually, Evan was not a bad choice. He had a decent family background and could have provided Jessica with a life of luxury. Not to mention, Evan truly loved her. If Jessica had agreed to marry him, she might have still been able to have a stable life. But the problem was, Jessica was too ambitious. She had dreamed of marrying my brother, but now she had to accept Evan. The gap was too large, and she couldn't bring herself to accept it. So, she decisively got rid of the baby. And it was this decision that pushed her into hell. Evan had placed too many hopes on this child. Yet Jessica, without even discussing it with him, directly aborted it. The deepest love can also turn into the most insane hatred. Evan transformed from a lovesick fool into the most terrifying type of man in the world, one whose love had turned to hate. The more he had loved her, the more he hated her now. The more he remembered how he had endured for her, how he had knelt for her, the crazier his hatred grew. So he began his frantic revenge. He ruined all of Jessica's new relationships, destroyed her reputation, and got her fired from her job. In the end, Jessica had no way out and could only marry him. When I heard the news that Jessica had married Evan, I just felt it was the second most foolish decision of her life. If it were me, I would definitely have gone abroad, or to a place where Evan could control me, and started over on my own. But Jessica couldn't do it. Her entire life, she only wanted to rely on men. And if she couldn't find a better man, she would go back to the man who had destroyed her. But she had forgotten one important thing. Evan was no longer the lovesick fool who would endure anything for her. In TV dramas, couples who go from love to hate can often reconcile. The male lead, no matter how much he hates her, will eventually fall in love with the female lead again. But reality is not a TV drama. Evan married Jessica only to destroy her. He no longer loved her. He only wanted revenge. 5 years later, the next time my brother and I saw Jessica Lee, she had completely changed. The woman who had once stunned so many with her beauty was now just a haggard gray shadow. I almost didn't recognize her. People told me that Evan had divorced her. He had planned it from the start, ensuring that after the divorce, Jessica would not get a single cent. Many years of her youth were exchanged for nothing. Her beauty, once her pride, had also faded with the years. And throughout all those years, she had never improved her abilities or her intellect. So, when she saw my brother and me again, she no longer had the arrogant look of the past. She didn't even dare to look at us and just quietly turned her head and left. Beside me, my brother let out a soft sigh. I looked up at him. Do you feel sorry for her? My brother shook his head. She brought it on herself. Indeed. Although my brother and I had a hand in speeding up her ending that year, in the final analysis we had simply told Evan the truth. All the rest were her own choices. My brother seemed to have thought of something. He raised his hand and ruffled my hair. Arya, remember, a girl still has to rely on herself. I nodded gently. The story ends here. Thank you for listening and following.